Welcome to the fascinating world of traffic signals. Today, I want to show y'all something with these controllers that we have to do today. We're going to update the firmware of this controller to 5.2.2. It is on 3.58G right now. And by the plans of the contract we're under on this job, we need to have these updated to 5.2.2. The reason why this one's not already on that is because we had a bad controller at this intersection today. A different person with the company came out and swapped the controller, put this one in, but did not update it to 5.2.2. So that's what I'm doing currently right now. And then we have another thing to look at a different intersection here soon that we will get to. But for now, let's go ahead and update this firmware. And it should be as easy as pressing a few buttons on it and putting a thumb drive in it. Let's see if it's that easy. Let's give it a try. Let's do it. So, luckily, somebody has already made a USB drive that has all the proper data that's supposed to be at this intersection. But the reason why this wouldn't work earlier for the tech that came out is because of this firmware being too low, and that this is set up for 5.2.2. And this controller is 3.58G. You cannot transfer data on a downgrade. You can only do it on an upgrade. So let's update this firmware so that we can restore all the proper data for this intersection onto the controller, get it set back up for the overlaps, and then this intersection should be set up properly and will run as it should. All right, so I have a thumb drive with the proper firmware in my hand, and I just keep this one in the truck with me at all times in case I need to update controllers. So we put the thumb drive in, we can hit 2, which is utilities, hit B, which is install software. Over here, I need to press B, and as you can see, it has on the USB stick 5.2.2. This is our firmware we need to upgrade to. So we're gonna press 1. This is going to validate the software file, and then it's going to give us this option. It says it's going to reboot, and it's going to default the controller. Press enter if you want to continue, or escape if you want to abort this. I want to continue, and we will then just have to reset up the intersection properly. So it's going to redo this. It's going to update the firmware. It's going to shut off this controller. It's also going to default all the parameters on the controller, and then I can reinstall the data that it should be once it's updated. And just that quick, guys, I was just talking to you for a few seconds. We're already updated to 5.2.2. It's not going to come out of Flash because it's not set up for the overlaps, so it's just going to keep having issues. But let's go ahead and transfer data to this controller as well. Just that simple. So if you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit the like button and make sure to subscribe. Let's get right back into it. I've swapped out thumb drive. This one holds all the data to the existing intersection that was here previously before we installed this new intersection. So let's go ahead and hit utilities. We need to go into the data manager, number 4. We need to press number 3 right here, load save USB config. And then we need to load from the USB. So press 1, and as you can see, our file for Ducksworth and 49 is here on this one. So we press 1 and press enter. It was already defaulted, but we'll still hit yes to the option. Putting over settings from file. We're gonna run through all of that. And here we go. Alright, so everything has been transferred over. All the data that's set up for this intersection set up properly, besides the overlaps and the TS2 options. The previous intersection was a TS1 cabinet, so now I need to go in here and update all the options, get the overlaps back in on the controller so that this intersection can properly run. Let me show you that now. What we need to go into is press number 4, which is unit data. You press 3, which is overlap data. Oh, and this is nice. It looks like the overlaps are already set up for the FYAs on overlap A and C. So let's back out of that. The next thing we need to check is this port 1 ITS data. We're going to come down. We need to enable some BIUs. So we need our detection BIU number 1. And of course, I need to go ahead and enable access onto this controller. Let me do that real fast. And there we go. We have access to the controller. So again, let's go back into unit data, number 7, which is port 1 ITS data. Let's go down and enable our detection BIU number 1. We're only using the number 1 on that, and we need to enable the malfunction unit. That's going to allow this controller to talk to this conflict monitor and this iTerra CCU. So, with all those enabled, as you can see, the intersection came out of flash. We're getting no faults, and it's hard to see out there, but all the lights are working like they should be. So, we got our controller updated, it's working, and we got all the data transferred back over. Real simple, worked out great. Didn't have to change out any of the controllers, and it's a real simple task here at this intersection. We got one more thing to go look at, and it's gonna require a bucket truck. So let's go pick up our bucket, and let's get down to that intersection and go check this out. All right, so I've just made it to the intersection in question, and this radar, hard to see on that strain pole across the street, is the one in question that's having the issues. But before I get this bucket truck set up and start working on that radar, swapping it out with a different one, let's get this traffic signal controller cabinet that's behind me opened up. Let's take a look at the programming, make sure nothing's a little tricky or messed up there. It has a troubleshooting, a self-troubleshooting mode in there. We'll look into real quick and see what the issue is with it. So let's get to that real quick. All right, so I've just connected to the radars, and it's actually a different issue. From the calls we were getting about it, I thought it would have been a bad radar, but it doesn't seem to be a bad radar. I'm gonna go in here, I'm connected to the one that's across the street there. If you go into tools, you got this little sensor diagnostics, and it will show you if that radar is in fail-safe or if it's not in fail-safe, which it's not. So it means that radar is working as it should be, which means that maybe it's not very tight on the pole. I can go check that, see if there's any nuts and bolts loose. And maybe if it was, the zones maybe shifted a little bit, or maybe we just had bad weather and it moved the radar a little bit, and now the zones aren't necessarily lined up with the lanes anymore, and I need to reconfigure out them zones. Let me go take a look at that. At this radar now, and as you can see, I'm pushing on it pretty good, and it seems like it is nice and tight, very solid. So I don't believe this shifted or moved. Everything looks to be correct on this guy. These are all tight, everything's tight here. So I'll put the bucket truck set up in the lanes down there, and we're gonna check out the zones real quick. So let's do that. You see, I should have known it. A call about a bad radar just doesn't happen very often. Wavetronics is seriously one of the best. That's 2 for 2 that we have gotten calls and complaints about something and pull up, and it's not Wavetronics' fault. Their equipment is running great, like it should be, and like it usually is when you use these radars. I'm back at the traffic signal controller cabinet, and I saw 0 issues with that radar. I went through both approaches, and both times it maxed out and it worked exactly like it should. But I have a theory, and this is my conclusion, and this is what I'm going to do. Let me turn it around. As you can see, this through lane with the right turn lane was as wide as this one, around 12 feet, which most typical lanes are, and that's how its default setup is. So I widened this up to about 16 feet on the right hand, or the right turn with the through lane, and just made it a little bit wider. My assumption is people are pulling too far to the right in that right turn lane, trying to go right, but then getting backlogged and stuck there instead of being able to proceed through the light. And that's where the calls and complaints may be coming from. Other than that, I don't know, because I wasn't there, and every time I am here, it's working just as it should. We're also going to take this recall off of phase 4. The city came out here and they put the recall in because they were the ones that got the call about the complaint. So we're gonna drop that recall they put in. I widened up that lane. I hope that's going to help and work for a little bit longer, or I say longer, for the next decade. And if it doesn't, then we'll get calls about it tomorrow, I'm sure. So I'll either be back out here tomorrow or it's going to work exactly like it should. And that's all I got for y'all tonight. So as always, thanks for watching, and I appreciate y'all. Good night.